Okay, gonna talk about Terraspace. So Terraspace is a Terraform framework that I wrote, and I wrote it to make it a little easier to work with Terraform. It's gonna hopefully make it a lot easier and hopefully more fun. It provides a structure. Structure is nice. Some conventions on kind of how things should work, and hopefully they should just work. And it keeps your code dry. And it helps do that by kind of generating a Terraform project essentially. And I'll explain all this. Um, and then add some convenient tooling kind of on top of all this to kind of make the workflow a little smoother. Here is a quick start on this blog post that kind of shows you 5 commands that you need. You need 5 commands here. So you install a tool, Terraspace, and then you could use Terraspace to actually generate a Terraspace project. Here's the command, new project infra. In this example, it's using the AWS plugin, but it also supports AWS, Azure, and Google. So it supports kind of all those kind of providers right now. And then it's using the examples option here to generate some starter example resources. The starter example resources is just a bucket. So it's a pretty simple resource. So that's what we're going to actually go build, and then we're going to go see and kind of review all in this demo. And then it's telling us to cd into the generate project, and then it's telling us to go Terraspace up demo. So this is the actually deploy command right here, Terraspace up demo. And demo, the name demo is actually the example that was actually created. And I'll explain all this. And then Terraspace down is going to destroy the infrastructure that we provision, which is just, in this case, S3 bucket. Here are some links to all the docs, like the install docs, and it tells you actually how to verify your installation, because there's a Terraspace check setup command that helps you with that. Then there are getting started guides for all these 3 providers here. So let's open that up real quick so we kind of take a look. So here's the getting started guides, and then you could kind of choose your cloud provider. I'm going to choose AWS. And then you can see here in the getting started guide is a little bit more detailed with the exclamation. Here it's just like, okay, here's just 5 lines. Okay. So I kind of bolded it down to 5 lines, but this is kind of more detailed. It kind of shows you how to install Terraspace, and then check on things like Terraspace check. Then it shows you how to configure your credentials on AWS, and you can do the same thing for Azure and Google Cloud and so down the line. And then it shows you how to create a new project, which is what we're going to need. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my own instructions here. And then it talks about reviewing the project, which we're going to do in this video here. Then deploying the infrastructure, changing, so making an update, and then kind of destroying. So we're just kind of go through these quick start instructions here for the sake of this demo. I grabbed the command already. And before we actually go through the demo and everything, let's actually finish the rest of this blog article. So this is kind of important, how Terraspace works. And it kind of Terraspace works by grabbing files in your app folder. So your module basically definitions in there. And then a config Terraform folder, which kind of has common Terraform code, for instance, backend TF. Okay? And then it takes those files and it builds essentially a Terraform project in the Terraspace cache folder. Then it CDs into that folder, and then it calls Terraform. So that's all kind of, I'm boiling this down. It does a little more than that, but that's basically how it works. So, and you can actually even run the commands more directly, like you can go Terraspace build demo. Then you cd into the generated stack, what we're calling stack here. I'll explain what that is. And then you can run Terraform and Terraform apply. Once you get into this folder, after the build stage, it's just plain actually Terraform. Okay? But you could just call Terraspace up and kind of does all those commands for you. Okay? Let's talk a little bit about project structure. I like to look at project structure when I'm kind of looking at new things here. So the project structure, there's app modules and an app stacks folder. So what's that about? So app modules is where, let's scroll down here, modules and stacks. So Terraform will look for files in the app modules and app stacks folders. Both folders contain Terraform modules. Okay, so a stack is just a Terraform module, and a module is a module, but kind of in everything in Terraform is a module. So Terraspace introduces this concept of a stack for organizational purposes. So a stack is essentially where you should put your business logic, your business specific logic, and the module is where you maybe want to put your library and kind of reusable or shared or kind of your functions kind of code that goes there. And you'll kind of see when we kind of generate a project here that the stack is going to use a module code just for the sake of example. And if you're kind of used to working with Terraform open source, then you can think of a stack as a separate Terraform project folder with a separate state file. Now, it doesn't have to be a separate state file. You can actually collapse it all and all that. It's all kind of really configurable. State management is fully configurable. And I should actually mention that the backend TF that it gets generated is actually dynamic too. I'll cover that actually in a bit, actually. And if you've worked with Terraform Cloud before or Terraform Enterprise, then you can think of a stack as a separate cloud workspace, essentially. Okay, that's kind of one way you can kind of use it. But again, this is all very configurable. I'm kind of generalizing here. So that's what app modules and app stack is. Stacks are kind of organizational kind of concept that's introduced to just say, hey, that's maybe where you should put your business logic, and modules where you should put your shared library code or functions. So we covered that. TFRs we'll cover in a bit, but kind of covers that's kind of how you use the same code to deploy different permutations, essentially the infrastructure code. Config app is where you kind of configure project level settings like the log level or even like the test framework. Yeah, it actually comes with the test framework, which is kind of cool. And then config Terraform, this is where the common code gets built with your deployed stack. And that common code, even though it's common, that doesn't mean it's not, it can't be dynamically generated, which we're going to show you in a bit. And then there's a Terra file. So this is an additional concept where you could actually bundle up like maybe third-party modules, and you can lock things down with a Terraform terrafile.lock file. So this is kind of one way we could achieve locking. We could achieve it just at the module keyword declaration too by doing like, specifying like maybe a repo and then the git tag and all that. But Terrafile is another way you kind of do it more centrally. So you kind of have a lot of flexibility. You can do it both ways essentially. Okay, so I covered this project structure kind of. Cover modules and stacks, and we're going to talk about state management. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that under the config Terraform folder is where you want to put backend TF. So here's backend TF right there. Okay, and Terraspace generates this backend TF as part of this Terraspace up command. So it really just calls Terraspace build internally, which is kind of built, and then it builds this backend TF. Now notice in this example here, there is templating. See? And there's expansion kind of helper method that's built in. So that expansion helper method, what it does is with these symbols right here, the colon, and then the all in cap locks words here, those are actually variables that are going to be substituted out because expansions does that for us. So you can see what we're going to do is we're going to generate a backend TF with a dynamically generated bucket here based on the account name, region, and environment. And you actually change this to whatever you want. This is just the starter example. And here's the key. So scope to region and environment and builder, which is essentially the stack name, kind of. And then, so that template, when you run Terraspace up demo, builds, here's the example, it builds this. So here's kind of the account number, here's the region, and here's the environment, and here's the same thing on the key level, right? So then you kind of have kind of fine-grained control over how you want the state file to, what state file you kind of want to use. Additionally, if you're thinking, oh man, I have to create this bucket, now for every single one. No, that's not how it works. Terraspace actually automates the creation of the backend storage bucket. So you don't have to do that. Terraspace will just do it for you. And it also generally enables reasonable defaults like security-related features. You might want security. You might want to enable encryption and SSL. So it does that by default. It's all configurable. You could tune it and all that. You could disable security, I guess. It also enables versioning by default, so just in case you have to roll back or you have to look at your old state file and understand what happened, that's enabled by default. Okay, and it will also generate for S3. That requires a DynamoDB in order to handle locking. That also dynamically it will actually generate that table also. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about TFRs and layering. Okay, so TFRs and layering. The cool thing about Terraspace is it allows you to use the same infrastructure code to create different environments like dev and prod. So that's useful. Most of the time you have different environments and they're very close to the same, except just a couple of different settings. Like between prod and dev, it's just a couple of different settings. So the way Terraspace kind of achieves this is with TFRs. That's how most people do it. You basically just say, hey, I want to use a different set of TFRs files for production versus development. And Terraspace will actually kind of conventionally do this. So then the commands become kind of nice and short. And this is one simple example of TFRs and layering. So layering is this kind of additional concept that's added where you could have, let's say, some common TFRs like base TFRs here. That's a special TFRs file that's always going to get applied if it exists. And then what happens is it's going to take base and then it's going to take dev and then it's going to layer those together. So it combines them. Or it's going to take base and it's taking prod and combines them. And it combines them based on TS-ENV. So TS stands for Terraspace. So TS-ENV, that by default, that's set to dev. But then you can override it with like prod here. So by doing like TSV prod here, Terraspace up instance, and this example is creating an EC2 instance. It's going to use base TFRs, and then it's going to layer with prod TFRs, right? And for dev, it's going to layer with base and dev. So that's how you kind of use kind of some common variables, and then layer environment-specific variables to create different versions of your infrastructure, like dev and prod, with the same infrastructure code. Now, this is a kind of very simple example of layering, because layering is actually a lot more powerful than that. You could actually not just layer like dev and prod, but you could layer regions also. So you can go multi-region with the same code. You could also layer, this is generic term namespace, but essentially this stands for AWS account, right? For AWS, and Google is the project, and AWS is the subscription. So you could actually layer basically accounts too. Then you can also even layer providers. And the way it works is it's kind of like a pancake. It puts the layers on top of each other. So then you kind of have like a lot of control over that. So then what you can do is like you can go multi-region, right? Here's an example with basically dev and prod in different regions, US East 1 and US West 2. And that's how you kind of achieve it there. So that covers layering and TFRs, and that's how the really cool thing is you can kind of use the same infrastructure code, because that's kind of like, you know, that's the dream there, where you can use the same code, just change a couple of variables, and then you just deploy it across environments, across regions, across, you know, accounts and all that. So that's pretty cool. There's a lot other things that can't really cover in this intro video here, but I kind of linked it out. The config structure, I did cover that. Generators, a lot of built-in generators, so you could create like modules or stacks with generators, and they just kind of create starter kind of structure for you, so you don't have to think about that. It's just kind of done. TFRs and layering, we just covered that pretty thoroughly. Configurable CLI. So Terraspace is going to call Terraform. And when it calls Terraform like init or Terraform apply, you can actually hook into that process, and you can do like a before hook. Before like Terraform apply, you want to do some extra logic, or after Terraform apply, you can do some extra logic, or init or whatever command. It's pretty actually generalized and pretty customizable. That's cool. And then CLI args, you could also add your own arguments to each of those commands. Like on Terraform apply, you might want an extra flag, so you can actually customize that too. So it's all pretty configurable. Testing framework is, there's one available built in, and it basically creates a concept called a test harness. And the test harness can essentially allow you actually deploy, if you want to, real resources. I recommend on a separate account. So then you can actually, you know, test your code, because, you know, we all do that, right? And then there is Terraform Cloud and Terraform Enterprise support. So Terraform Cloud and Terraform Enterprise is kind of like a variation of the Terraform Cloud software, except instead of running a multi-tenancy, it runs in your own dedicated cloud, or your own dedicated, even on-prem if you want. So basically, both is kind of supported, because it's essentially pretty much the same. There's some slight differences, but generally it's pretty the same. These current cloud providers are supported: AWS, Azure, and Google. And here is the link to the documentation site. So let's go open that real quick. Here is the documentation site. You can click on, you know, getting started. You could choose your cloud provider here, and then you can kind of do what you need to here. And there's also docs here, intro, how Terraspace works, the configs. So it's all documented here. So maybe read that. And now I've done a lot of talking, so let's actually do a demo. Okay, let's jump into a demo. So to do a demo, I'm gonna read my own instructions. I'm gonna skip the install and skip the configure, because that's already done. I just need this one. Terraspace new project plugin AWS. So let's go ahead and create new project. You can see Terraspace new project infra plugin AWS examples. It created all these kind of files. One of the files it created was the module example, and then a stack demo. So that's what we're going to deploy. We're going to deploy this stack demo. So let's actually look at what it looks like, right? Let's open up right here, stacks demo main. There we go. So like I said, it's going to create a bucket. But this is not bucket. It's saying source. Oh, it's the module keyword. Okay, so that means this demo stack is going to use this example module, the reusable code. Okay, so this is just like a starter structure, just or example to show you how the structure works. And you can see that this module right here is using this example right here, which is the AWS S3 bucket. And here's the bucket and variable properties here. These kind of get defined here and then get passed in here. So these variables need to kind of exist. So when I open this up, it should show variables, and it does right there. There's the variables. Okay, so that's good. Now we're kind of ready to deploy. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and close this all back down and go to the bottom here. Oh, and there's some instructions here. So good thing I'm reading my own instructions because I almost forgot the CD into infra. And then we can go and run Terraspace up without the Y. With the Y, it's going to bypass the Are You Sure prompt. You probably don't want to do that for production. But I'm just going to do it without the Y so we can kind of see the plan, and then we can see what's happening. So here it's just saying, hey, we're about to create a random pet resource. Let's just kind of give us a random bucket name. And then it's going to create the S3 bucket. So now we're just typing yes, enter. And see, now it's creating the S3 bucket. So it created the bucket inform humpback. Okay, so let's confirm whether or not that bucket actually exists. S3, then grep for that. And there, the bucket exists. So that's cool. So we actually created the bucket already. Now let's do the end of this. So this was, we created a new project. We deployed the bucket. We created a real resource. Now let's actually destroy it. So Terraspace down demo. Okay, so I'm running that. And you can see, oh, maybe I should have explained it. Anyway, let's go back up here and explain it real quick. When I did Terraspace, that's down. When I did Terraspace up, right here, it did building this cache directory right here. Then it says current directory is this because the CD is in there. And then it does the Terraform init and Terraform apply. So it just that's what it does. And Terraspace up just automates it. Down will kind of do a similar thing. It builds the cache folder there. Then it CDs in that current directory there. It does Terraform init and Terraform destroy. And now it's going to give us a prompt saying, hey, we're going to destroy this random pet and we're going to destroy this S3 bucket. So we can go click yes. And there goes the bucket. So long, inform humpback. Bye-bye. Okay, so that's done. And let's see what the bucket's gone now. Let's just grep for it. It's gone. No more bucket. That's kind of cool. One thing maybe I'll show you real quick is Terraspace new maybe stack. And I just call it bucket too. We'll create another bucket stack, right? Okay, and there's another bucket right here, but this is just empty. It's just starter, right? You're just kind of getting us started, which is nice. So yeah, that's done. So yeah, you get a lot for free there, and that's just kind of all done. Let's see if there's anything else I want to cover. I think that is it. Okay, so that's Terraspace. It's a Terraform framework. I think it makes it easier and more enjoyable to work with Terraform here. So hopefully you found this helpful, informative. Cheers.